Hey there, family. This is your friend, Lord Danavan Hylton, business advisor and relationship management consultant, making sure that I'm either increasing your customer base or two, increasing your presence in the community. And I do that through my sales and marketing firm, Hylton Elite Marketing Agency, Nashville-based sales and marketing firm that, again, focuses on business development and community relations, outsourcing, particularly for employers and career training organizations that need more applicants for their available jobs or their career training programs. For local businesses, usually bringing in at least $12 million or more in sales per year, they may need to connect to urban-based or inner-city communities to be prospective customers at the minimum, or they're just looking to drive traffic to their business, either the brick and mortar business, their office, or to their website, and they want to increase their customer base in a particular territory that we serve, which is usually urban areas, which can include not only ethnicity but also density to include your inner cities. And then we also work with urban core developers or real estate developers and helping them get more buy-in or awareness from a community perspective for their real estate development projects. And again, we're increasing your customer base or your presence mostly in urban areas of Tennessee. Our work is growing beyond Tennessee and just throughout the southeast region of the U.S. With the goal of being a number one provider of business development and community relations and engagement solutions throughout the U.S. And then with the goal and idea of working with African diaspora countries and the corporate world and bridging those gaps, particularly, again, like we said, in employment and recruitment marketing, career training, recruitment marketing, local business development. And again, we just talked about urban core development, which is what we're talking about today, and making sure that these investors and real estate developers have buy-in on their projects. Because if they don't and they start their project, they could obviously lose money because they have to backtrack and play public relations and all those things. And so, this conversation is for real estate developers on how you're able to, bypass a lot of challenges and create win-win deals, or at least build a strong working relationship with the community groups and residents and leaders that you need for your development projects. And two, if you're a community organizer or just a traditional community resident that just wants to stay engaged and involved in the developments that are going on in that area, we definitely want to make sure you're aware of some of the terms, terminologies, perspectives, and strategies that are used. And I just wanted to use the new stadium plan to have that conversation. And this is not about the stadium plan in general. Obviously, I just share if anything's dealing with employment recruitment, career training recruitment, urban core development, or anything with local business development and its content, I'm going to speak on it, share my thoughts, because I do serve not only as a CEO of my consulting firm, Hylton Elite Marketing Agency, but my work has taken me into serving as an advisor to business owners, executives, board members, nonprofit organizations, entrepreneurs, to help them get more insight, access, and resources to anything that's increasing their customer base or the community presence, helping them to retain staff and clients, to include motivational speaking. And so my advising work has picked up because of the success of my consulting business. So I'm just going to share some thoughts when it comes to urban core development. And I want to shout out Hylton Elite Marketing Agency for powering this insight discussion. And I want to say this is going to be possibly a 3-part video series. I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm going to try to keep the video within 30 minutes or less per series. But I want to cover some things. I'm not causing any challenges. I'm just giving you perspective to stimulate your mind if you're coming from a community resident perspective or if you're coming from a investor development perspective. And the goal is to make sure you reach out to our consulting firm, Hylton Elite Marketing Agency, if you're a community resident or organization, to get more tips, insights, but also if you're a real estate developer or investor that needs, more community relations, assistance, resource, generation of leads, brand awareness, or cross-promotion opportunities. Definitely want to reach out to us to see how you can create a win-win deal between your work and the residents and the community that you're going to build in. And so I want to shout out Hylton Elite Marketing Agency. There's a QR code there to scan to find out more about our work as far as the consulting side, as well as if you're looking to do some advising with me, Lord Danavan Hylton, we definitely want to make sure we reach out to you. So again, this is Insight from Lord Danavan Hylton. We're going to jump right into it. Let's do it. Leave your thoughts, first of all, in the comments if you're in the Nashville area, if you necessarily agreed or was a fan of the stadium plan. Looks like there's a new stadium plan, which means there's an old stadium plan. So were you a fan of the old stadium plan? If you were or if you were not, leave your thoughts in the comments. And how did the old stadium plan affect your community or your experience in life overall? As well. Leave that information in the comments. So let's look at this stadium plan in more detail. And it's safe to say that the stadium plan is a win for Nashville taxpayers. And one of the first things I want to just throw out is it boils down to the money in a lot of these projects. And what a win looks like for Nashville taxpayers is not having to pay the majority of the taxes for these development projects. It's a lot of moving parts. You know, you got to, as a community resident, you're paying for property taxes, which really covers your educational school systems for the children. You got first responders. You got all kind of different things that you got to pay for as far as when you spend your money that goes to the government, that you want to make sure that you can keep respectfully as much money as you can. So you should always be looking at, okay, any development that's going on, how is this going to affect me and what I'm obligated or tied to make, payments for this development? How does this benefit, me and my community at the minimum? And so looking at the new stadium plan here, it says it's a win for Nashville taxpayers. Let's look at exactly how that works. And first thing we notice respectfully when we go down into the subheading is funding source. And that's why I just want to reiterate the money aspect for any developer, how you're getting your funding. Or if you're looking to get community buy-in, how are you getting your funding plays a huge role because it's tax dollars sometimes being used. And then you have people that not only look at the tax dollars as far as community residents and groups, but also what type of benefits are the local community residents and groups getting out of your development, which obviously you're going to make money as a developer, respectfully. So it does boil down a lot of times to the funding. And look, in your subheading, you're talking about funding sources. So looking at the existing stadium lease here, we have a football, and then we also have a new stadium lease that also has a football. Now, one football is predominantly red. Another football looks like a few shades of blue, if you will. And let's look at the differences. So now for the existing stadium lease, it looks like the Metro Nashville agreement showed that the Metro Nashville government, respectfully, which boils down to the taxpayer at the end of the day, because the taxpayer is what funds the government. And that's why you have people always saying, well, you work for me if you're a teacher or first responder or things of that nature, respectfully, because it's the tax dollars, the property taxes, and other things that play a huge role in making sure the city is sustainable as far as its livability and its crime and safety. And so with that being said, Metro Nashville government was obligated to fund the stadium upgrades and maintenance, which meant that for the most part, the stadium was funded through the Metro Nashville government and its taxpayers. And there was a small portion, looks like at the bottom here, for the first football, maybe 10% or less, the Titans were responsible for the suites, the offices, and the locker rooms. And so just for me, and as I grow into serving as an advisor to figureheads and executives, business leaders, community leaders, elected officials, things of that nature, and helping to serve as an advisor to create win-win deals, I definitely would love to have been at the table to see how the Metro Nashville government was obligated to fund the stadium to include the upgrades and maintenance, and the Titans pretty much funded, the suites, the offices, and locker rooms, and how majority of the funding came from Metro government. Now, I'll be curious to know, how Metro government felt like that was a win for them. And if you look at the new stadium lease and the risk that was taken, from looking at face value, it looks like that risk has definitely turned and harvested into a reward. And I want to get your guys' thoughts in that aspect in more detail. But there's a huge shift in the funding source when it comes from Metro Nashville and Titans, which is the existing stadium lease, to the new stadium lease. Huge shift. And that shift, according to the new stadium lease, looks like funding is coming from tourism. And I want to shout out Visit Nashville, or the Nashville Visitors and Conventions Corporation, led by CEO Butch Spyridon. had a chance to experience the conventions, corporations, operations in detail, assisting the World Association of Kickboxing Organizations, WACO United States of America, which is WACO USA. And they are the United States of America's national kickboxing team. They just received their recognition in that regard. Just had the World Games in Birmingham, Alabama, first time. This was in 2022, first time this happened in U.S. soil in years, as well as kickboxing possibly becoming a Olympic sport in 2028. Is very honored to be a part of a group that helped spearhead and drive the combat industry, not only within Nashville, but also Tennessee, and to have the United States kickboxing team host the United States kickboxing championships for youth and adults in Nashville for 3 years, 2021, 2022. 2021 was at the Millennium Maxwell House Hotel in Metro Center, Nashville. 2022 was at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium. And the 2023 USA National Kickboxing Championships was just announced. That's going to be at the Nashville Fairgrounds in May of 2023. And just seeing how those things worked that deal with tourism, I want to shout out the Convention Center, the Convention Corporation, Nashville, Visitors and Convention Corporation. I'm messing that up, but Visit Music City and the work that they're doing through tourism. And it looks like the stadium and the campus users are playing a 15%, 20% role in this. Basically being campus users, I'm sure other businesses or vendors, and then different stadium uses and other fees. And then we see the state playing a role in funding at this time, one-time contribution toward a new enclosed stadium. And so for me, that kind of measures success because you see Metro Nashville as city government, obligated to the majority of the funding source, but now we see some growth in the state. The state is saying, hey, we can help in that aspect as well. And so definitely love to be at the table for the states with the state's economic development office and being a part of this conversation. And because those are some of the players that, played a role in that. Then you have the Titans, the NFL, and the professional sales license, which professional sales license, I believe, is people that buy season tickets, if you will, and are obligated and have the right and ownership to those seats for the year. They buy season tickets, they get seats assigned to them, and they own those seats for the year. I'm not speaking out of ignorance. And they're able to sell tickets or sell their seats for different games, things of that nature. So the Titans, the NFL, and the professional seating licenses are what's going to help fund the majority of the new stadium lease. And I would say the Tennessee Titans, as far as entertainment-wise, does a great job of bringing a crowd out, no matter what their record is in the season. Do a great job of bringing the crowd out. And Nashville overall as a city has done a great job of being an attractive tourism spot. So being an attractive tourism spot and having entertaining football is a great combination for the Titans, the NFL, to make that investment. So I can definitely see that. And again, that's why I want to shout out the Nashville Conventions and Visitors Corporation, led by Butch Spyridon, for making these things happen, because hotels play a huge role. And I believe, now with this new stadium going up, the stadium is now able to, or Nashville is now able to host Super Bowls. I know when Nashville hosted the NFL draft a few years ago, 2018 or 19, it was packed. Broadway, it's just a lot of opportunities. So I definitely see, where this direction is going. But it's great to see the title says a win for Nashville's taxpayers. So we're going to talk about that in more detail. Now, looking and speaking on stadiums, in the stadium being downtown in an urban core area, and my work has taken me to work with not only Nashville and its real estate development growth, but also with Nashville surrounding counties. And that growth right now has gone in all directions as far as real estate and cost of living and things of that, and housing, things of that nature. But right now, the hot trend is the growth, real estate development growth going north of Nashville, all the way up through Robertson County, Clarksville, and up to the Kentucky line. And then, of course, the Kentucky border is growing as well, because people are having to, adjust to cost of living. And so during those times, looking at a stadium, what was the motivation, the origin, the purpose of wanting to create a stadium in Nashville at that time when it was thought of, to the point where that risk made it through the process to now it's a reward time for the city. Now, this is a 20, 30-year process. And that's why I wanted to bring up Brookings, because this report that I did research on regarding stadiums at the time and why, they were, was this just a Nashville thing, or were stadiums popping up all over the place? And I will say, it looks like from my research, stadiums may have been popping up all over the place. And I remember back in like the Roman times and earlier times with early sources of trade and economics, when it came to jobs, construction, and keeping a mass load of men busy doing construction was a great way to keep the men busy, to keep the men having income in their pocket to be able to provide for their family. And that was very favorable to the politicians and elected officials at that time, because stadiums were built respectfully during wartime. That kind of low key gets production going, because now you're creating things that deal toward that subject matter, and I'll leave that there. But if you notice, even with the pandemic, respectfully, there were certain industries that shot up and certain businesses that changed what they were manufacturing, so that created jobs, if you will, from the minimum. I'm not sure how deep that goes, but ultimately there was a situation where it was a good economic business model to basically create new stadiums. And that was covered in a Brookings report. Sports, jobs, and taxes, are new stadiums worth the cost? And with me working in rural areas now in real estate or urban core development, compared to metro municipalities where there's a lot denser population, you have an area now in rural areas where cities and municipalities are saying, hey, we have majority farmland. We're and looking at land use, we're not revitalizing or renovating already constructed buildings. We just actually have land that we need to develop on. And so now, because growth is happening, housing is a challenge and things of that nature, you now have farmers across the country, but particularly in the greater Nashville area, selling their land or turning their land into real estate development, which is their choice. But also I'm hearing debates about how, farmland being transferred over into urban core developments in the long run can put a city, municipality, or county in debt based upon, once the developments are created, the various maintenance as well as other developments that have to be created. And slowly that takes money away from the revenue streams and also creates more debt compared to farmland being an investment in a commodity and land always being valuable. And so it's an interesting conversation. I love to be in the middle of them, but we're talking about now land use and the best use of that land. And now a question here is, sports, jobs, and taxes, are new stadiums worth the cost of a best land use practice? And I want to shout out Andrew Zimbalist and Roger Knoll, who wrote this article back in 1997. And I chose this article because I'm curious to see, when this was something that was new in origin almost 30 years ago, what was their mindset and their idea and what were their perspectives now that we're 30 years down the line and we kind of seen some of the effects of the causes, if that makes sense. And so this is not a for Brookings or for any, this is just me doing research on the stadium plan and just looking at, okay, well, the stadium plan is a stadium, and recognizing that there are models of stadiums being developed in urban core areas for a reason. And so you got to look at, a lot of times when you come to planning commissions and things of that nature, a lot of these conversations are 20 to 30 years in advance. You can't just think this is part of the community organizing and community resident perspective. You just can't think a lot of this stuff is popping up just out of nowhere. These are gradual steps that have been premeditated respectfully and hopefully integrally, that have affected where we are today. And that's why it's very important to recognize when you're in civic engagement, what is being discussed is going to affect what's really going on 20, 30 years down the line. So with that being said, we're looking at it from a 30-year original article perspective of 97. Let's look at what's being talked about here. Why, and this clips from the article. Some of the things that I read that caught my attention, I wanted just to bring up and talk to you about. Why cities subsidize sports. And I say this because I remember the earlier times and just kind of listening to people talk about the stadium. And there's also a soccer stadium that was being developed in Nashville as well. And there were a lot of conversations that relate to the Titan Stadium as far as principles and processes, where subsidy and subsidizing businesses that come into and relocate to certain areas, and the city and the state have to pay for it. Those things are real, and affect a lot of the local residents. I want to shout out, if you've seen this TV show Yellowstone, that breaks down a lot of how land gets transformed into urban developments and how the state and the city and the counties play a role in subsidizing those things and what's being talked about and all those things. So there's various information that you could watch, even entertainment, to help you get, more familiar with how the process works. So you're not as emotionally over-invested and you can be wise in how you move. So why cities subsidize sports? The economic rationale for cities' willingness to subsidize sports facilities is revealed in the campaign slogan for a new stadium for the San Francisco 49ers. Build the stadium, create the jobs. Proponents claim that sports facilities improve the local economy in 4 ways. We're going to jump into that in a minute, but I had an opportunity to run for city office in Nashville and go through that process of working to get elected. I didn't get elected as a city council member, but I did get elected from the person I ran against, who took the city, who actually became elected. They were actually a elected official for a political party, and they said, hey, if I get elected for the council member seat, I want you to take my seat to be an elected official for this political party. And this allowed me to get more understanding of how the political process, civic process worked, who a lot of the players were, because I was an elected official in a sense for a political party, and my role was to oversee 7 councilmatic districts within this political party to help. And it happened to be the more urban areas where I was advocating activities and events and education opportunities on behalf of this political party, helping to get residents out to vote, become aware of voting, and helping to fundraise. And then my work helped me to grow into, after my term was up, to not serve as an elected official for that political party and have a more independent stance, to be able to connect with other political parties and not have any conflict of interest in the position that I was in. And so now I work with civics and politicians, government agencies in any capacity from an independent standpoint, mostly because I want to make sure that information is getting to the community residents, and information from the community residents are getting to the public sector for win-win deals. And one thing that we noticed here, that I've learned in civics, is when you're running for office or you're in office, a big benefit or proponent that you want to speak on is saying, hey, I was able to create jobs. That's why you should get me in office or keep me in office. And if you notice here, build a stadium, create the jobs, it's because you're keeping people busy and they're getting money in their pocket. They're getting more disposable income. They're able to, buy more discretionary production items, and pots and pans and things of that nature. And people feel good. Money's flowing, money's spending. And people don't realize sometimes that even though you're creating jobs, what is the back end, the behind the scenes or down the road ramifications, if any. So first, building the facility creates construction jobs. Second, people who attend games or work for the team generate new spending in the community, expanding local employment. We'll talk about that as well. Third, a team attracts tourists and companies to the host city, further increasing local spending and jobs. Finally, all this new spending has a multiplier effect, as increased local income causes still more new spending and new job creation. Advocates argue that new stadiums spur so much economic growth that they are self-financing. Subsidies are offset by revenues from tickets, taxes, sales taxes on concessions, and other spending outside the stadium, and property tax increases arising from the stadium's economic impact. I messed that whole reading up, but I'll try to cover that again, but let's move forward. Ultimately, you're creating construction jobs. That's a big thing, and you're able to create employment in masses. I think of wars. I think of large construction opportunities for quick construction jobs. That's a good look for any elected official. Second, people who attend the games work for the team to generate new spending in the community. You're driving back and forth to the office or around the office, so you're going to spend locally in that area. You're going to expand local employment, because when more spending comes more job opportunities, because businesses need to increase demand. Excuse me on that. Third, teams attract tourism and companies to the whole city. So if you're a business and your business is around something where you have consumers in that area that can buy from you, you're going to move your business there. So you got some companies that are around nothing but sports teams, for a reason. That's their business model. And finally, new spending has a multiplier effect, as increased local income causes still more new spending and job creation. So it's definitely a snowball effect. And so, but advocates argue that new stadiums, they debate that new stadiums spur so much economic growth that they are self-financing. Subsidies are often are offset by revenues from ticket taxes, sales taxes, or concessions and other spending outside the stadium. And that's what, if you look at the funding source for the Titans, NFL, and PSL, that's where the majority of their money is coming from. And that's why I want to say almost 50% of that new stadium lease is blue. And so that's definitely a debate that people will use, and why cities subsidize sports. Let's move on.